welcome to Education Insights. Always a pleasure to catch up with an old friend and comrade, Theo Kerhoulas, the Superintendent of Port Huron Schools. Theo, welcome.
Thank you. I miss you, my friend. It's good to be back here.
I miss you too. It's always good to catch up with you, though, when we're around. And so let's start with some really good stuff, which this time of the year, your two high schools announced their vals and sals. So how cool is it? I know for what you've done, I know what we did together at Croswell Lexington, and then you did the same types of things here of weighting, high level classes, and to see a valedictorian with like a 4.65 GPA.
Amazing.
And talk a little bit about that.
Well, as we did at Croslex, and we did it here about 10 years ago at Port Huron Schools, we want, if we're going to have a valedictorian and a salutatorian, we want them to be the strongest academic kids in the school. We want to honor what needs to be honored. So what we did, we gave merit points to the advanced placement classes, which most would say are the most rigorous classes, the toughest classes. They're at a college level, and I've sat in on those classes, and they are tough. So if you take multiple of those, your GPA goes up higher than kids just taking a traditional math class. You take AP Calc, you get 5 GPA points instead of 4 if you get an A. So these kids, at Port Huron High, Miles Alderdice, at Port Huron Northern, Preston Lee, and Haley Brandon, these kids have taken 15 or 16 advanced placement classes and have like GPAs 4.6 or something like that, and just an amazing, hard-working set of kids. And we'll honor them at commencement, and we'll honor all kids, but those kids will get a special medallion saying that they went above and beyond. So super proud of those kids, and the system now I think is working, having the kids who took the most rigorous classes and excelled the most up there in front of their peers.
Well, I remember one of our first conversations getting to know each other in education was about the need for higher level classes, the need for AP classes. To see a student that has taken 15 or 16 AP classes, and what people don't realize about an AP class, first of all, the rigor of the class, but second of all, they can take an exam at the end and get college credit. I mean, if you've taken an AP and passed an AP exam on 15 classes, you could be looking at 60, up to 50 to 60 credit hours in college. That's an amazing thing for the kids too.
Well, yeah, it's called articulation. So there's an agreement with schools all around the United States, but significantly in Michigan, where you get a 3, 4, or 5 on an AP class. You don't have to take that class at Saginaw State University or the University of Michigan. Saves parents money, gets kids advanced in their track, so they can take different classes there as well. And I coin this as taking back the senior year, because so often our kids get through all their graduation requirements by the time they're a junior or even a late sophomore, and this allows them to take things that they're going to need for whatever they want to do. And those are the advanced placement, the rigor classes, but we also have some really incredible things to take back that senior year, like the Blue Water Middle College. A lot of our kids, you said 60 credits, a lot of our kids stay 1 extra year but get 2 years of college from the Blue Water Middle College, and they're starting their 14th year really as their 15th year. They gain a year in the process, and that's an amazing program, which I know is dear to your heart as well.
Yep. Well, and I know that's one of the things that you've said, and not to compare to other school districts around you, but one of the things Port Huron, because of its size and because of its commitment to things, when you were able to offer 16 different courses in a high school that are AP, or if you want to take the track of Blue Water Middle College and get 2 years of college in when you graduate from high school, those are things that you're able to do that are great for students.
Yeah, I'll compare our district 6 days a week and twice on Sunday, man. We're the best. Yeah. So, but with Blue Water Middle, advanced placement, and dual enrollment, which our kids can just take a class in lieu of a traditional class, one at the college, primarily, St. Clair Community College. We have a great relationship with them. But our kids can get so many college credits upon graduation, and they're all paid for. And I don't say free because our taxpayers are paying for it, but they're free to the families. And man, that helps our families from poverty. I was talking to a kid the other day, and he said, I took this advanced placement class because of the content. right? And he said, but now I'm successful. This was a kid who you wouldn't peg as being like the most rigorous, going down those AP track. And he said, but because I did well in this, I know I can do it. And now next year he's taking 3. So I'm like, that is what it's all about.
Absolutely. It's about helping students to strive to be their very best, what they can absolutely achieve. So.
But if you're not, if those rigorous classes aren't, those academically rigorous classes aren't your thing, there's also rigorous classes from tech where they can take things that they're interested in. As you, I'm talking to you about tech. You used to be the superintendent of tech, which is a great pathway for our kids, and they're very rigorous as well in their own way.
I know that when you and I worked together, we talked a lot about alternative pathways. A niche for every student, if you will, and you mentioned tech there. So let's delve a little bit into something that you've really wanted to do. Interestingly, in a separate interview for a program, I interviewed James Freed, and he talked about 60% of the new nursing comes from tech program through SC4 right into the Port Huron McLaren Hospital.
Right.
Similarly, we need public safety people. Talk about what you really wanted to do to have a future in that locally here as well.
Yeah, I was talking with Brenda Tenniswood, who took over for you at RISA, and we said, listen, we've got these kids that are on waiting lists that don't get into tech. We have these kids that want to go to tech, and so she did a study, and she found out what do most of the kids want. And by far, the kids from Port Huron schools, anyway, our kids, they want public safety. They want to talk about law enforcement, fire, ambulance, 911 response, things like that.
EMS.
Yeah, and the number was outstanding. It was huge, the amount of kids that want that, and tech doesn't offer it. But they can't because they're landlocked. They don't have the facilities, right? Well, we've got, we're a huge district. We've got facilities. So Brenda and I, we talked about it and we worked out. So we're going to pilot public safety at the Woodrow Wilson campus, an elementary school. It's got a beautiful space that's unused right now. One of my most favorite spaces in the whole district, to tell you the truth. It used to be a big STEAM lab. And we're going to run law enforcement next year with a path the year after to bring fire safety in. So we can get kids a leg up on the police academy. When fire gets in there, they're going to leave with fire certification. They can start working right when they leave high school in fire. And we're looking at possibly EMS so it's going to be really an interesting program to watch it develop.
Be a half a day thing for kids, just like the tech.
Yep.
Okay.
They go in the AM, they can go in the PM. It'll be offered to anybody in the county. They'll have to find transportation there from other school districts, but our kids are going to get bused right there, and we're looking forward to it. And I know it'll be a positive thing, because when you can get kids with people in the field, these will be real police officers, real firemen and women. It'll be to see their passion and the kids. We went and visited a couple around the state, and just amazing what they do in there. And personally, as a citizen, you probably feel the same way. If we can get more kids in the pipeline for public safety, that's better for all of us, right? It makes us a stronger community.
Well, that's what we've always talked about too, with collaborating with our county and city governments, and what are the things that are needed, and what education can do to provide for those needs. And by the way, it crosses over into careers. The pathway that we've always talked about opens up a new pathway potentially for students as well.
Yeah, here's kids that can be a 30-year police officer, a 30-year fire person. Just retire from that, do great for their community, and couldn't be better. Couldn't be happier with that program.
We are now 5 years. It's hard to believe. 5 years from about right now when COVID started. We've certainly, the evolution of mankind has been different because of what happened. And interesting. You talk about EMS and about we're talking about nursing and things like that. It was made very to the forefront through that whole thing. How has your school district evolved, and what did it kind of open your eyes up to do in the future, coming out of that era?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that probably people that aren't in education wouldn't see is that it connected our schools with our families at a whole different level of relationship. You know, when our teachers were teaching our kids virtually, you know, through Zoom and whatnot, it was, you know, was not a great thing. But one good outcome that came out of that was we were right in families' houses. We knew their dog. We knew their little sister. We were able to, and that relationship hasn't gone away. We're able to keep those. You know, we were helping feed families that needed it. You know, when everything was closed. If you remember, we get the shakes when we think about that. But you know, we were having food lines at all of our schools and feeding our families, and you know, dropping packages off at the door with curriculum and things that they needed. And that level of engagement with families, I hope stays forever, because that was just such a great thing, and we've kept it up. And now that the schools, you know, in the last couple of years, we've been able to reopen our schools and bring families in for, you know, activities and assemblies and math nights and all those things that we used to do. But now we're doing them at a higher level. So, you know, I hate to say that, you know, COVID was a horrible thing, of course, but there are some goods that came out of it, and we want to keep those goods going.
You evolved.
Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly.
As a school system,
Exactly.
people evolved. We looked at things differently, I think, and education, I think, has come a long ways from that. So talk a little bit about some of the other things that are on your, you know, because I know you and I know, well, you're a list maker. You have goals. Well, look at this right here.
Yeah, because if you and I were here, we'd just be talking about, you know, non-education things, because we're friends. Although, if you really knew we were friends, Kevin would have wished me a happy birthday, and he didn't. Tomorrow's my birthday, and Kevin Miller, my close friend, you know, has not wished me a happy birthday. We're 5 minutes into this interview.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that afterwards, I'm sure. So talk though about, as you envision the future, and even the end of this year and the next year, some of the things that you would like to see in Port Huron schools.
Well, I'm a big proponent of, and I know you are as well, is the out of classroom experience as well. To get kids involved, whatever their niche is in high school, to get them involved in something other than the academics is so essential for their success. And we just had some amazing things we do every year, but we just had some amazing things go on. Of course, the thing you start with, you know, the big popular thing that you see in the newspaper is athletics, right? And the arts. So we just had some such, you know, great things. Right now, it's kind of the end of that middle season. We've got district finals. You know, our swim team won the MAC, just crushed teams. They just did an amazing job. Our Port Huron High hockey team won the MAC, and they hadn't won a district in 15 years. Just an amazing program. But all of our, you know, and this week I think girls basketball is happening, and we'll be going, you know, all around, I think, in Anchor Bay to go see them, and it's just exciting. But then there's the, you know, the arts, which aren't, you know, on the front page of the newspaper, and you know, our band, our marching band is now doing festivals and scoring high. Our choirs are doing the same. You know, we've got incredible musicians out there, and you know, something people don't know, we have a huge guitar program at Port Huron High. You go to a guitar concert and there's 40 kids with guitars on stage playing, and you know, it's not in the limelight, but it's just an amazing thing. And then our theaters, you know, we're blessed to have 2 performing arts centers at either side of the city, and our high schools are performing musicals right now. You know, one's Percy Jackson is Northern, and Guys and Dolls will be PH. But the great thing, which I'm really proud of, is we've invested in the middle schools and now elementary schools to use those stages and get kids on them to do their to show off their talents, right? And just, I mean, if you go to our high school performances, they're like you're on Broadway. They are amazing, talented kids, musicians, and this and that. And then, you know, just this weekend, I was at Port Huron High. We had 200 kids in there in the cafeteria doing a district-wide chess tournament. And I got to tell you, it's exciting. You think like it would be quiet and you know, like you see in the movies, but man, these kids are into it. They're aggressive and they're getting after it. But then when it's said and done, it's so cute to see the kindergartners shake hands, you know, across the good game, and that's what it's all about. You know, having those kinds of things when you teach those. You know, it's so important to learn chess or any game like that. But it's also really important to learn how to win and how to lose.
Absolutely.
Right? Actually, probably learning how to win is probably more important to be humble and win with and to lose. It's just it was great to see, you know, our kids do that. But we've got, you know, a strong robotics program, which is things like I didn't have when I was in school. I don't know about you. I know you know about Destination Imagination. Just Friday, I was at Thomas Edison. The Destination Imagination kids there, fourth graders, put on a bike safety program for the school. So they brought in, helmets and the fire department and some stunt, these kids, they had stunt BMX riders doing tricks. So all the kids are watching like this, and then they talked about safety, and then the kids would do, the stunt guys would do more tricks. And it was just, it was just great to see kids, involved at that level. Mock trial, all the clubs. High school's fun. High school's fun.
Well, and I think it's important for people to know in their superintendent, and I know this because I've talked to you about this before, and I think what drives you as a leader of Port Huron Schools is something you told me, gosh, Theo, it's probably been 18 years ago now when we first talked, and that is you really felt like a school district needs to provide enough opportunities to where every student finds a reason to be involved in school. You used the word niche earlier, and I know that you live by that credo, that if we find something for every student to be involved, it's better for that student then when they go to school.
It's funny you say that. If you're an administrator in this district and I hired you, whether you're principal or curriculum or whatnot, you had to sit down with me and go over the 13 principles of leadership by Theo. So it's just, I tell them at the beginning, sorry, you have to do this. This is what I feel a leader in our district is. And number 7 on there is you have to make every single child feel special. The third chair clarinetist has to feel like the point guard on the basketball team. Yeah. Whether you know anything about the clarinet or basketball, it doesn't matter. Every kid needs to feel like they are the most important person in your life.
Yeah. Fantastic. When we return, let's talk about some other topics on the agenda. We'll continue here with Education Insights with Theo Kerhoulas, the Port Huron Superintendent, in just a moment.
At Lake Huron Medical Center, our dedicated staff are committed to providing comprehensive care that meets your individual needs. We take time to listen to your concerns, understand your needs, and develop a customized treatment plan just for you. Trust in our expertise, experience our compassion, and let us be your partner in achieving optimal health. Visit us today and discover the Lake Huron difference.
Semco Energy Gas Company is dedicated to you with a focus on customer service and fuel today for a sustainable tomorrow. Semco Energy works hard to make your time with family and friends warm and cozy. Semco Energy Gas Company. Natural gas works for Michigan.
Welcome back to Education Insights. It's our pleasure to talk with Port Huron Superintendent Theo Kerhoulas. And Theo, we touched on all those points of pride in the district and philosophy in that first segment, but let's talk a little bit about safety, because that has changed dramatically. And back in the days, remember, we used to talk about how do we barricade a room and how has education evolved from a safety standpoint, and some of the things you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, well, schools are, a micronism of society, and as things change, we have to evolve as well. We feed kids, breakfast and lunch, and sometimes dinner, and on the weekends, and, things are changing, and safety is one of those things. Yeah. Kids can't learn if they're hungry. Kids can't learn if they don't feel safe. If you don't get those two things out of the way, then we can't really get into the math or the ABCs. Yeah. So we've taken a big, I'm very proud of our district evolving with safety over the last 5 or 8 years, and it starts with just an emergency operations plan, which we have. It may sound boring, but they don't sit on the shelf at Port Huron Schools. We really work hard at being in the forefront of safety, and you have to be. We've done some really great things over the last years, and I'll just start with probably the biggest thing we did, and thanks to our community for supporting our 2016 bond. A lot of that money went to safe and secure entrances, being able to just, buildings that used to have doors open and you could come in anywhere. Now you come to one place at any of our 18 schools. You come into a safe, secure entrance, and you talk to a person, and we'll determine whether you have business, in our schools or not. Whereas in the past, it was more open, and now, it's hard to secure a big high school that's built for 3,000 students, but we have, and we've done a great job, and we thank the bond for allowing us to do that.
Anything else that you've been able to do with buildings and looking futuristically as far as safety that
Yeah.
you'd like to do?
Yeah, so well, that I'd like to do. Let's go back and see what we have done.
right.
So when you just talk about facilities, number one is cameras with our doors. Have a fob entrance, so it buzzes in. It tells us who comes in and who doesn't. If you're not one of our staff members, then you have to come through that front door. Like we said, there's a camera there. You don't even get into the front door unless we buzz you in and you have business there. Then you're into a secure place where we can have conversations. There's a thing called Raptor. If you visited any of our schools, you would know. Our families know. If you're a non-student coming in, you have to scan your ID. It puts you through a database to ensure that there's lots of checks and balances along the way to see people we don't want in our schools to keep us safe. So and it prints out a sticker. In the past it used to be a welcome sticker with a happy face. Well, we've evolved. Now it's a printout with your picture on it, right? The date, where you should be on our campus, and a time limit, like in an hour and a half, you should be out of here, right? And it keeps a record of who comes in and out. So it's really a good deterrent and a safety feature, for us. One exciting, I don't know if it's exciting, but it's I think something that people don't know are in our schools are vape detectors.
Yeah, that's something we wouldn't have talked about 5 years ago. Yeah.
Right. Vapes are a really big issue with our teens and really a health issue for our kids. And we try to, the first thing is education. We got to teach them what we do, the harm it can do, but also in our bathrooms, because you don't have cameras in bathrooms, of course, but we have vape detectors, and they send alerts to administration's cell phones and to our hall monitors and to our SROs, and that's been just so the kids know they're there, I think has been a great deterrent to bringing vapes into school, and then of course using them.
You mentioned SRO. For the people at home who may not know, the school resource officers. How many do you have around the district?
Yeah, so when I first started, we had 0, and we started with a great relationship with the city of Port Huron. I think you had James Freed in here before, and Chief Reeves back in the day, then Chief Platzer, and now Chief Kerrigan. But we have a great relationship starting with Port Huron Schools and then to the county, to the Sheriff's Department, where we split costs of we have 5 full-time police officers on our staff, and they're school resource officers. They're specifically trained to how to work in schools. Of course, God forbid we ever needed them for an emergency. That's a first line of defense, of course, and they're incredibly trained and heroes to me. But also, they're mentors to our kids. Our kids know they can safely come up to them and ask them questions. They're also a good, if things happen out in the community and our kids are out there, it's a good person to talk to about that. Hey, I'm struggling with this out in the community. Well, put our arm around you. Let's see what we can do. Let's get you the help you need before it gets to a place where, we believe, let's get our arm around a kid and help them before you have to put handcuffs on a kid, And those SROs are amazing human beings. We're really lucky to have them.
I think it's underestimated a little bit, the fact that you just have an opportunity for students to see police officers as somebody that they can go to preventatively, as opposed to somebody that they just meet when they've done something bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part that's I think it's unheralded part of what we've done in school districts with SROs.
Yeah, I can't say hello to my SROs when I go into a building because there's a lineup of kids that want to talk to them.
Yeah.
And we have incredible counselors, as you know, you have family members that way.
Yeah.
We have great counselors, we have social workers, but there's a whole nother niche of kids that want to speak to law enforcement. And our kids have lots of resources at our schools, and those are some of them.
So let's transition in our last segment here to support. Because a district isn't a school district of choice and of stature without tremendous community support. And I know that's one of the things that's been near and dear to your heart as superintendent for the past half a decade here. Mm-hmm. So talk about how important that is to your district and your feeling about that.
Yeah, I wrote a couple things down because I don't want to miss anything.
I'm shocked by that.
I try to be prepared. The Port Huron if you're not from here, you wouldn't know how incredibly supportive our community is of our schools. And I lived here, but I worked at Croswell Lexington, and when I first came here, it blew my mind how much support was out there. Of course, we talked about the bond. For a city like ours and a community like ours to support $106 million bond was incredible, and they did. It was important that told us that the community trusts us, and we didn't take that lightly. We did that work on time, under budget. We keep all that work up to date. But also, just last year, if you don't know, we passed a 10-year operating millage and a 10-year sinking fund, first sinking fund in the history of Port Huron schools. And those two things really show that in tough economic times, our community understands education is what needs to be there to help our kids, right? They support our kids. So those are the big things, but it doesn't stop there. Those big things are huge and help us keep going. But every board meeting, and if you ever watch our board meetings, we have, it takes like 10 minutes because we don't have to, we want to. We thank the people who support us financially, this donor, that donor, this, and the list is just incredible, from people who donate $12,000 to people that donate, $200. Yeah. It's just an amazing time, and we're just all like quiet during this of seeing all these things on the board and thanking these people. So it's really great. And then, as you know, we have the Community Foundation, which is, supports the whole county. But we have Port Huron Schools Endowment Fund. So this is where, at the Crosstown Showdown, the big football game or the Case for Kids, our race, they raise, thousands and thousands of dollars. I think I think there's almost $500,000 in there right now. And we write mini grants out. The committee takes mini grants and supports things like STEAM in schools, or just recently we had an African American read-in for Black History Month, and these kinds of things, they support with small $2,000 here, and also our college access advisors, which are a fairly expensive one in both high schools, to do that. So that's just great. And then, we have people that donate time. Of course, our staff and our families are amazing, and they donate their time. There's also some unsung heroes. Drive out on a snowy, rainy day and see our crossing guards, our adult crossing guards, and our little crossing guards, of course, with their belts, but our adult crossing guards, or our classroom grandparents. These are just amazing people, unsung heroes that you never hear about. But I gotta say, probably, if we talk about it takes a village to run a school district or to raise a child, our Board of Education is, I think, the most highly functioning board in the county. They're an amazing group of 7, and they put kids first. And I see, other boards around the country, around the state, because I work at a lot of statewide levels, and I am truly blessed to be a superintendent with a high functioning board. They put a lot of pressure on me. Like they work my tail off, which is good. I accept that. But they are high functioning and put kids first.
That's not to be undersold. So we've all seen the districts that can come apart with a board that's not supporting the superintendent, and I think that's a huge part of why the district's been successful. Is your board has
Absolutely.
been right at the forefront of basically, and I think this is a role. I used to tell our board, you need to be cheering on your superintendent. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously you set the stage for what's going to happen with some of the votes you do, but support your superintendent so that superintendent can do the work of the school district. Yeah. And I think that your board has done that.
Well, and I take that even a step further. Our board, our 7, are my and our district's biggest cheerleaders, yeah. But they also hold me accountable, because that's really important too. You have to hold I'm like the CEO of the school district. You got to hold me accountable, and they do. Believe me, on Sunday I get the call. On Saturday night I'll get the call, which is great. But then they're also our biggest cheerleaders, which is really, really important. And we've got 7 great people.
Well, congratulations on, and I was thinking about this leading up to our interview today, but you're in your 11th year since you came to Port Huron, and I think 5th year as superintendent. Yep. Congratulations on everything that the district's accomplished. I know your heart And I know what you believe, and I'm really proud that you've been able to walk, step by step through your district and cheer your district on as well. So that's
Well, I
very
had
much
a great
appreciated.
I had a great mentor.
Well,
my old superintendent.
Back at you too. So, all right, Theo. Always good to talk to you, and thanks for your updates on Port Huron schools. And that'll wrap up this edition of Education Insights. We thank you so much for joining us.